The great space station Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between the stars. It was huge, bigger than most planets, with thousands of lights blinking on its surface. Ships from all across the galaxy came and went from its many docking bays. Today was different, though. Today, the station was full of worry and fear. In the main council chamber, hundreds of alien beings sat around a massive circular table. The room was so large that voices echoed off the walls. Each alien looked different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some breathed air, others needed special suits filled with gas or liquid. They were all here for the same reason. The Zephyrian Empire was winning the war. General Vexstar stood at the center of the room. He was a Drachnari, one of the reptile people from the Outer Rim. His body was covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. Old battle scars ran across his arms and face. He was 8 feet tall and built like a mountain. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like grinding stone. "The situation is worse than we thought," General Vexstar said. His yellow eyes looked around the room. "The Zephyrians have taken 12 more systems in the past month. They are moving toward Kepler Station." A worried murmur went through the crowd. Kepler Station was important. It controlled the main trade routes between the inner and outer systems. If the Zephyrians took it, they would control half the galaxy. Commander Kyleth stepped forward. She was from the Hive Coalition, one of the bug people. Her body was long and thin, covered in hard black shell. 4 arms moved as she talked, and her large compound eyes reflected the lights in the room. "Our scouts report that the Zephyrians are building a new fleet," she said. Her voice sounded like clicking and buzzing, but the universal translators made it clear. "They have over 300 ships ready to attack. We have maybe 200 ships to defend with." General Vexstar slammed his clawed fist on the table. The sound was like thunder. 200 ships, he growled. "And most of them are old cargo vessels with guns stuck on them. The Zephyrians have proper warships." An alien made of living crystal spoke up. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "What about the new species? The ones from the third arm? Maybe they can help." "You mean the humans?" Commander Kyleth clicked with what sounded like laughter. "They only learned to fly between stars 50 years ago. They are still using chemical rockets and metal bullets, very primitive." "Where are they anyway?" asked a floating gas cloud that spoke through a mechanical voice box. "I thought they were supposed to send someone." General Vexstar looked around the room. "They said they would send a representative, but I do not see anyone who looks like a human." As if summoned by his words, the main door of the chamber opened. A figure in standard Alliance military armor walked in. The armor was plain gray metal with no special decorations. It covered the person completely, so no one could see what species they were. The figure was not very tall, maybe 6 feet. They moved quietly, not making much noise. They found an empty seat near the back of the room and sat down without saying anything. Several aliens turned to look at the newcomer. A lizard-like being with 6 arms whispered to his neighbor, "What is that thing? It looks so small." "Maybe—" "It is a servant," replied a creature that looked like a walking tree. "It is probably here to bring food or clean up." General Vexstar noticed the whispers and looked toward the back of the room. His eyes narrowed when he saw the armored figure. "You there?" he called out. "State your name and purpose." The figure did not move for a moment. Then a voice came from the helmet. It was calm and steady. "I am here to represent Earth in this council." "Earth?" General Vexstar's voice was full of surprise. "You are the human representative?" "Yes, sir." "General." Vexstar walked closer to get a better look. The other aliens watched with interest. This was the first time many of them had seen a human in person. "Stand up," General Vexstar ordered. The humans stood. Even standing, they were much shorter than the Drachnari general. General Vexstar walked around them like a hunter checking its prey. "This is what Earth sends us?" General Vexstar said loudly so everyone could hear. "Look at this tiny creature. No claws, no natural armor, no weapons that I can see." He turned to address the whole room. The humans are supposed to be warriors, but look at this. It is smaller than a Drachnary child. How can such a weak species help us fight the Zephyrians? Some of the aliens began to laugh. A bear-like creature with metal implants said, I heard humans cannot even survive in space without machines to help them breathe. Their planet has such weak gravity that they would be crushed on most of our worlds. Added a spider-like being with 8 eyes. Commander Kyleth clicked her mandibles together. My research shows that humans have no psychic abilities at all. They cannot even sense each other's thoughts. How do they coordinate in battle? General Vexstar was enjoying the show. He had never liked the idea of including new species in the Alliance, especially ones as primitive as humans. This was a perfect chance to prove his point. Tell me, human, he said, his voice full of mock politeness. What special abilities does your species have? Can you shoot energy beams from your eyes? Do you have acid blood? Can you turn invisible? The human's helmet turned toward him. No, sir, none of those things. No special abilities at all? General Vexstar pretended to be shocked. Then what exactly can you do? I can fight, sir. This brought more laughter from the aliens. A slug-like creature that left a trail of slime said, Fight? With what? You have no natural weapons. I use tools, sir. Tools? General Vexstar's voice was full of contempt. Even the most primitive species use tools. My people were building starships when your species was still throwing rocks at each other. A human said nothing. They just stood there, calm and still. General Vexstar decided to push harder. Remove your helmet. Let us see what a human warrior looks like. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the human reached up and pressed something on the side of their helmet. There was a soft hiss as the seals opened. The helmet came off, revealing a human face. The room went quiet. Most of the aliens had never seen a human without armor before. The human had short brown hair and blue eyes. Their skin was pale and looked very soft. There were no scales, no fur, no natural protection at all. This is a human warrior? General Vexstar could not believe what he was seeing. It looks like a child. Where are your fangs, your claws, your venom sacs? The human, who was actually a man named Jack Morrison, looked up at the towering alien general. His face showed no fear, no anger, just calm attention. I do not have those things, sir, Jack said. Then how do you expect to fight the Zephyrians? General Vexstar demanded. They are twice your size and 3 times as strong. They have natural armor and claws that can cut through steel. I will find a way, sir. The simple answer seemed to make General Vexstar even more angry. You will find a way? Human, this is not a game. This is war. Real war, where real soldiers die. I understand that, sir. Do you? General Vexstar leaned down so his face was close to Jack's. Because from where I stand, it looks like Earth has sent us a soft little creature who will die in the first minute of battle. Jack looked directly into the general's yellow eyes. With respect, sir, you do not know what humans are capable of. This was too much for General Vexstar. He threw back his head and roared with laughter. The sound echoed through the chamber. Soon, many of the other aliens were laughing too. What humans are capable of. General Vexstar wiped tears from his eyes. Human, your species has been in space for less than a century. My people have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We know what real warriors look like, and you are not it. Jack put his helmet back on. I am ready for whatever mission you have for me, sir. General Vexstar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. He had an idea. A way to prove once and for all that humans were not ready for real war. Very well, human. Since you are so eager to prove yourself, I have the perfect mission for you. General Vexstar walked slowly around Jack Morrison like a predator circling its prey. His heavy footsteps echoed in the large chamber. The other aliens watched with interest, waiting to see what the Drachnary general would do next. So, human, General Vexstar said, his voice full of cruel amusement. You think you are ready for war? Let me tell you what war really means. He stopped in front of Jack and crossed his massive arms. War means facing enemies who want to tear you apart with their bear claws. War means fighting in the vacuum of space where one small hole in your suit means death. War means watching your friends die while you try to complete your mission. Jack stood perfectly still. I understand, sir. Do you? General Vexstar leaned down until his scarred face was inches from Jack's helmet. Because I have been fighting wars since before your species discovered fire, I have seen what real combat looks like. Commander Kyleth stepped forward. Her forearms moved as she talked, and her large compound eyes reflected the lights. General, perhaps we should discuss the humans' capabilities more carefully. What exactly can your species do in combat? Jack turned to face her. We adapt to different situations. We use strategy and tactics to overcome stronger enemies. This brought laughter from several aliens. A creature that looked like a giant mantis clicked its mandibles. Strategy? Every species uses strategy. What makes humans special? Nothing makes us special, Jack replied. We just do what we have to do, General Vexstar snorted. What you have to do? Human, let me show you what other species can do. He walked over to a metal table near the wall. With one hand, he grabbed the edge and lifted it completely off the ground. The table was made of solid steel and weighed at least 500 pounds. General Vexstar held it above his head without any effort. This is Draknari strength, he said. Then he set the table down and extended his claws. They were as long as knives and sharp enough to cut through armor. These are Draknari weapons. We are born with them. He pointed to Commander Kyleth. Show the human what your people can do. Commander Kyleth nodded. She closed her large eyes and concentrated. Suddenly, every electronic device in the room began to flicker. The lights dimmed, and the air recycling system made strange noises. The Hive Coalition can control electronic systems with their minds, General Vexstar explained. They can disable enemy ships without firing a single shot. The demonstration ended, and the room's systems returned to normal. General Vexstar looked at Jack with a satisfied expression. Now, human, show us what you can do. Jack looked around the room. Every alien was staring at him, waiting for him. To fail, some were smiling, others were making quiet jokes to their neighbors. I do not have any special abilities to show you, Jack said. No special abilities? A floating jellyfish-like creature spoke through a translation device. Then how do humans fight? We use our minds and our tools. Tools? General Vexstar laughed. Even primitive animals use tools. A monkey can use a stick to get food. That does not make it a warrior. A lizard with 6 arms raised one of them. I have studied human history. Your species spent thousands of years fighting each other with swords and spears, very basic weapons. That is true, Jack admitted. And even now, your military still uses chemical explosives and metal bullets? Added a crystal being. Most civilized species gave up such primitive weapons centuries ago. General Vexstar was enjoying himself. He had proven his point. Humans were too weak and primitive to be useful in a real war. Tell me, human, he said. What is the strongest thing your species has ever fought? Jack thought for a moment. Each other, mostly. We have had many wars on Earth. You fight your own kind? A gaseous alien that looked like a cloud of smoke seemed surprised. That is, wasteful. Most species only fight other species. Yes, we fight each other, Jack said simply. And what weapons do you use in these fights? Whatever works. Guns, bombs, tanks, aircraft, ships. Commander Kyleth clicked her mandibles. But these are all artificial weapons. You have no natural defenses at all. No natural defenses, Jack agreed. General Vexstar walked over to a wall display that showed pictures of different alien species. He pointed to one that looked like a giant spider with armor plates. The arachnids have natural armor that can stop laser blasts, he said. They also have venom that can kill most species. In seconds. He pointed to another picture. The thermals can survive in temperatures that would melt most metals. They can also generate heat beams from their bodies. More pictures followed. The shapers can change their form to become any weapon they need. The miners can tunnel through solid rock with their bare hands. The flyers can survive in space without any life support. General Vextar turned back to Jack. Every species in this room has natural abilities that make them dangerous. What do humans have? We have each other, Jack said. Each other? General Vextar was confused. What does that mean? We work together, we help each other. We do not give up on each other. This brought more laughter from the aliens. A bear-like creature with metal implants spoke up. All species work together. That is what civilization means. But most species only help their own kind, Jack replied. Humans help anyone who needs. Help even your enemies? Asked the slug-like alien. Sometimes, yes, General Vextar shook his head. That is not strength, human. That is weakness. In war, you must be ready to kill your enemies without hesitation. I am ready to do that too, Jack said quietly. Are you? General Vextar moved closer. Have you ever killed anyone, human? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Yes, how many? Enough. Something in Jack's voice made the room go quiet. For just a moment, the aliens saw something different in the human. Something that made them uncomfortable. But General Vextar was not impressed. Well, at least you have some experience. But killing one or two enemies in a small fight is not the same as real war. He walked back to the center of the room. Let me tell you about real war, human. The Zephyrians are not like the soft creatures you might have fought on Earth. They are professional soldiers, bred for combat. They had been conquering planets for over 1,000 years. Jack nodded. I understand they are dangerous. Dangerous? General Vextar roared. They are death itself. A single Zephyrian warrior can fight 10 normal soldiers and win. Their claws can cut through steel armor. Their skin can stop most bullets. They feel no fear and show no mercy. That does sound challenging, Jack said. Challenging? General Vextar could not believe the human's calm response. Human, they will tear you apart in seconds. You will not even have time to scream. Maybe, Jack said. But I still volunteer for whatever mission you have. General Vextar stared at him. Was the human brave or just stupid? It was hard to tell, Commander. Kyleth spoke up. General, perhaps we should assign the human to a support role, supply duties or communications. No, General Vextar had a better idea. The human wants to prove himself. Let him do it. He turned to face the entire council. We need someone to infiltrate the Zephyrian command ship. It is a suicide mission. No one who goes will come back alive. The room went silent. Even the bravest aliens would not volunteer for such a mission. The command ship is protected by over 100 fighters, General Vextar continued. It has the best shields and weapons in the Zephyrian fleet. Inside it is guarded by their elite soldiers. He looked directly at Jack. But if someone could get inside and take out their commander, it would end the war. The Zephyrians follow a strict command structure. Without their leader, they will retreat. I volunteer, Jack said immediately. Of course you do, General Vextar smiled. Very well, human. You will take a small stealth ship and try to reach the command vessel. While you are getting yourself killed, the rest of us will create a distraction. When do we start? Jack asked. General Vextar looked at his tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet will reach Kepler Station in 6 hours. We launch in 4 hours. I will be ready, Jack said. I am sure you will. General Vextar turned away. Dismissed. As the aliens began to leave the chamber, many of them looked at Jack with something like pity. They were sure they would never see the human again. Jack walked toward the door, but General Vextar called out to him. Human, wait. Jack stopped and turned back. What is your name? General Vextar asked. Jack Morrison, sir. Lance Corporal. United States Marine Corps. Marine Corps? General Vextar had never heard the term. We are soldiers, sir. We fight. And what do you fight for? Jack was quiet for a moment. We fight for the people who cannot fight for themselves. We fight for peace. We fight so that others do not have to. General Vextar watched as Jack left the chamber. The human was either the bravest creature he had ever met or the most foolish. In a few hours he would find out which. 4 hours later, Jack Morrison stood in the hangar bay of Nexus Prime. Around him, dozens of alien warships were getting ready for battle. Pilots ran back and forth, checking their weapons and fuel. Engineers worked on last-minute repairs. The air was full of tension and fear. Jack's ship was small compared to the others. It was a stealth vessel built for sneaking past enemy defenses. The hull was black and covered with special panels that would make it hard for enemy sensors to detect. Inside, there was barely enough room for one person. A technician who looked like a walking octopus checked the ship's systems. "Everything is ready, human," he said through his translator. "The stealth field will hide you for about 30 minutes. After that, they will be able to see you." 30 minutes? Jack repeated. "That should be enough time to get close." Close? The technician's tentacles wiggled with what might have been laughter. "Human, you will never get close. The Zephyrian command ship is surrounded by fighters. They will destroy you long before you reach it." Jack climbed into the small cockpit. "We will see." The technician sealed the hatch and stepped back. Through the window, Jack could see other pilots getting into their ships. They were all much bigger than him, with natural armor or cybernetic enhancements. Some had multiple arms for better control of their weapons. Others had enhanced eyes that could track targets in the dark. Jack had none of these advantages. He was just a human with standard equipment and basic training. But he had something else, something the aliens did not understand: the hangar bay. Doors opened and space appeared beyond. Stars filled the darkness, and in the distance, Jack could see the lights of the Zephyrian fleet. There were hundreds of ships arranged in perfect formation. At the center was the command ship, a massive vessel that was bigger than some space stations. "All ships, this is General Vexstar," came the voice over the radio. "Begin the attack. Create as much noise as possible. Make them think we are coming straight at them." The Alliance fleet moved forward. Drachnary battleships fired their main guns, sending bright energy beams across space. Hive Coalition ships launched swarms of fighters. Crystal beings in their living ships created beautiful patterns of light as they attacked. Jack watched the battle begin, then turned his ship in a different direction. While the main fleet attacked from the front, he would try to circle around and approach from behind. The stealth field activated, and Jack's ship disappeared from enemy sensors. He flew carefully through the battle zone, avoiding the larger ships and their weapons. Explosions lit up the space around him, but he stayed focused on his target. The Zephyrian command ship was enormous. It was shaped like a spear, with the command section at the front and engine pods at the back. Its hull was covered with weapon turrets and sensor arrays. Smaller ships flew around it like insects protecting their hive. Jack checked his time. 20 minutes of stealth remaining. He had to get closer. He flew his ship between two Zephyrian destroyers, so close that he could see the alien crew through their windows. They had no idea he was there. His ship passed through their formation like a ghost. 15 minutes of stealth left. Jack was almost at the command ship now. He could see the hangar bay doors on the side of the huge vessel. That was his target. If he could get inside, he might have a chance. 10 minutes. Jack prepared to make his final approach. The hangar bay was defended by automated turrets, but they could not see him while he was stealthed. 5 minutes. Jack was almost there. The hangar bay doors were opening to let fighters launch. This was his chance. 3 minutes. Jack aimed his ship at the opening. He would have to fly inside just as the stealth field failed. It would be close. 1 minute. Jack took a deep breath and pushed his engines to full power. The small ship shot forward like a bullet. 30 seconds. The hangar bay was getting bigger and bigger. Jack could see Zephyrian fighters inside, getting ready to launch. 10 seconds. Jack's ship crossed the threshold into the hangar bay. 5 seconds. He was inside. 0. The stealth field failed. Immediately, alarms began to sound throughout the Zephyrian ship. Red lights flashed and automated defenses activated. The hangar bay doors began to close, trapping Jack inside. "Intruder alert," came a voice in the Zephyrian language. "Hostile vessel in hangar bay 7. Jack's ship was detected by every sensor in the hangar. Weapon turrets turned toward him, ready to fire, but Jack was already moving. He flew his ship In a tight spiral, using the Zephyrian fighters as cover, the turrets fired, but they hit their own ships instead of Jack. Explosions filled the hangar bay as Zephyrian fighters were destroyed by their own defenses. Jack flew his ship toward the far end of the hangar where there was a maintenance opening. It was barely big enough for his small vessel, but he had no choice. The opening led to a service tunnel that ran through the ship. Behind him, Zephyrian soldiers were running into the hangar bay. They were bigger than humans with thick armor-like skin and claws instead of fingers. Their faces were ugly with too many teeth and small red eyes. "Destroy the intruder," shouted their commander. "Do not let it escape." But Jack was already gone. His ship disappeared into the service tunnel. Leaving the Zephyrians behind, the tunnel was dark and narrow. Jack had to fly very carefully to avoid hitting the walls. His ship's lights showed pipes and cables running along the sides. This was the inside of the enemy ship, the place where all the important systems were located. Behind him, Jack could hear the Zephyrians trying to follow. They were too big to fit in the tunnel, but they were cutting through the walls with their weapons. Soon they would break through. Jack flew deeper into the ship, following the tunnel toward the command section. According to his intelligence briefing, the Zephyrian admiral would be on the bridge. At the very front of the ship, the tunnel opened into a larger space, and Jack found himself in what looked like a cargo bay. Boxes and containers were stacked everywhere. This was good. He could hide his ship here and continue on foot. Jack landed behind a stack of metal crates and shut off his engines. The cargo bay was dark except for a few emergency lights. He could hear the sound of the battle outside, explosions and weapon fire. The Alliance fleet was keeping the Zephyrians busy. Jack opened his ship's hatch and climbed out. He was wearing a standard space suit with armor plating and a helmet. On his belt were a pistol, a knife, and some small explosive charges. Not much compared to what the Zephyrians had, but it would have to do. The cargo bay had several exits. Jack chose the one that led toward the front of the ship. He moved quietly, checking each corner before advancing. The corridors were wide and well lit, designed for beings much larger than humans. As Jack moved through the ship, he could hear Zephyrian voices echoing from other corridors. They were searching for him, but they did not know exactly where he was. The ship was huge, with hundreds of rooms and passages. Finding one human would not be easy. Jack found a computer terminal and tried to access the ship's systems. The Zephyrian language was strange, but his helmet's translator helped him understand some of it. He was able to find a map of the ship and locate the bridge. "Attention all units," came a voice over the ship's communication system. "We have an intruder aboard. Search all sections. The creature is small and may be hiding in maintenance areas." Jack smiled inside his helmet. They still did not know he was human. They thought he was just some small alien species. He continued toward the bridge, staying in the shadows and avoiding the main corridors. The ship's layout was confusing, with many levels and branches, but Jack had studied similar ships during his training. He knew how to navigate through enemy territory. A group of Zephyrian soldiers passed by the corridor where Jack was hiding. They were talking to each other in their harsh language. "What kind of creature could fly a ship into our hangar?" One of them asked. "Maybe it was a suicide attack," another replied. "Some species are crazy enough to do that. The commander wants it taken alive for questioning," said a third. "Try not to kill it when you find it." Jack waited until they were gone, then continued his journey toward the bridge. He was getting closer to his target. Soon he would face the Zephyrian admiral, the alien who was responsible for so much death and destruction. But first, he had to get there without being caught. And that was going to be the hard part. Jack moved through the ship like a shadow, using every trick he had learned during his military training. He avoided the main corridors, stayed in the darkness, and moved only when he was sure no one was watching. The Zephyrians were still searching for him, but they were looking in the wrong places. They expected him to act like other alien species, following predictable patterns. But Jack was human, and humans did not follow the same rules as everyone else, step by step. Corridor by corridor, Jack Morrison made his way toward the bridge of the enemy ship. Behind him, the battle raged in space. Ahead of him, The Zephyrian admiral waited, not knowing that death was coming for him. The real fight was about to begin. Jack Morrison moved through the dark corridors of the Zephyrian command ship like a ghost. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of soldiers searching for him. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the metal halls. Their voices were angry and frustrated. "Where is this creature?" one of them shouted. "How can something so small hide so well?" "Keep looking," replied another voice. "It has to be somewhere." Jack pressed himself against the wall and waited for them to pass. He was in a maintenance tunnel now, a narrow space between the ship's outer hull and the main corridors. It was dark and full of pipes and cables, but it was the safest way to move without being seen. Through a small window, Jack could see the bridge section of the ship ahead of him. It was heavily guarded, with Zephyrian soldiers at every entrance. Getting inside would not be easy, but Jack had an idea. He pulled out a small device from his belt. It was an explosive charge no bigger than his thumb. Most alien species would try to fight their way through the guards using brute force. But humans had learned long ago that sometimes the indirect approach worked better. Jack placed the charge on a power cable that ran along the tunnel wall. According to the ship's schematics he had seen earlier, this cable supplied electricity to the bridge's defensive systems. If he could cut the power at just the right moment, it might create the distraction he needed. He set the timer for 5 minutes and continued moving toward the bridge. As he crawled through the tunnel, Jack could hear more Zephyrian voices. "Increase the search pattern," came a voice over the ship's communication system. It sounded like an officer giving orders. "Check every room, every closet, every storage area. This intruder must be found." "Sir," replied another voice, "we have searched 90% of the ship. There's no sign of the creature." "Then search again," the first voice snapped. It did not just disappear. Jack smiled inside his helmet. The Zephyrians were getting desperate. They were used to fighting enemies who acted like them, following predictable patterns. They expected their opponent to either attack directly or hide in obvious places. They did not understand human tactics. The explosive charge went off right on schedule. The lights in the corridor ahead flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but it was not as bright. More importantly, the defensive sensors around the bridge went offline for almost 30 seconds. That was all the time Jack needed. He slipped out of the maintenance tunnel and ran toward the bridge entrance. The guards were confused by the power failure and did not see him coming. Jack moved fast but quietly. He reached the bridge door just as the main power came back online. The guards turned around, but Jack was already inside. The bridge of the Zephyrian command ship was enormous. It was circular, with workstations arranged around the walls. In the center was a raised platform where the ship's commander stood. Admiral Zargoth was there now, a massive Zephyrian with scars covering his face and arms. "Report," Admiral Zargoth demanded. "What caused that power failure?" "Unknown, sir," replied one of his officers. "Engineering is investigating." "Find the cause and fix it," the Admiral growled. "We cannot afford any more surprises." Jack hid behind a bank of computers near the entrance. The bridge crew was busy with their work and had not noticed him yet. He counted 12 Zephyrians on the bridge, including the Admiral. They were all armed and much bigger than him, but Jack had advantages they did not know about. He was smaller and faster. He could fit into spaces they could not reach. And most importantly, he could think in ways they did not expect. Jack looked around the bridge and saw what he needed. Near the Admiral's platform was a control panel that managed the ship's main weapons. If he could disable that system, it would help the Alliance fleet outside. He also saw something else. The bridge's artificial gravity generator was located directly above his head. It was a large device that kept everyone's feet on the floor. If that stopped working, the Zephyrians would be floating helplessly in zero gravity, but Jack had grown up on a planet with gravity. He had trained in space where there was no gravity at all. He knew how to move and fight when things were weightless. The Zephyrians did not. Jack pulled out another explosive charge and attached it to the gravity generator's control unit. He set the timer for 2 minutes. That would give him time to get into position. Then he moved toward the weapons control panel. He had to cross an open area where the Zephyrians might see him, but they were all focused on the battle outside, watching their fleet fight the Alliance ships. "Sir," one of the officers called out, "the Alliance is sending more fighters toward our position." "Destroy them," Admiral Zargoth ordered. "Use the main guns if necessary." Jack reached the weapons panel and began working on it. Human technology was different from Zephyrian technology, but the basic principles were the same. Computers were computers, no matter who built them. He plugged a small device into the panel's data port. It was a virus program designed by human military hackers. It would slowly corrupt the weapon systems, making them unreliable. "What is that?" A Zephyrian officer suddenly shouted. Jack had been spotted. A young Zephyrian at a nearby workstation was pointing at him with one clawed finger. "Intruder on the bridge," the officer yelled. "Security alert." All the Zephyrians turned to look at Jack. For a moment, nobody moved. They were surprised to see such a small creature on their heavily guarded bridge. Admiral Zargoth stepped down from his platform. "What is that thing?" he demanded. "How did it get in here?" Jack stood up slowly. His hand moved to his weapon, but he did not draw it yet. "I am Lance Corporal Jack Morrison, United States Marine Corps," he said clearly. "A human?" Admiral Zargoth's eyes widened. "Impossible. Humans are weak creatures. They cannot even survive in space without machines." "You would be surprised what humans can do," Jack replied. The gravity generator exploded above their heads. Immediately, everyone on the bridge began to float. The Zephyrians cried out in alarm as their feet left the floor. They waved their arms wildly, trying to grab onto something solid, but Jack was ready. He pushed off from the floor and flew through the air toward Admiral Zargoth. In zero gravity, size and strength mattered less than skill and experience. The Admiral tried to grab Jack with his claws, but Jack twisted away. He landed on the wall behind the Admiral and pushed off again, this time toward the main computer console. "Stop him," Admiral Zargoth roared. "Kill the human." The Zephyrian soldiers tried to shoot Jack, but they were floating helplessly. Their shots went wild, hitting the walls and ceiling. Some of them hit other Zephyrians by mistake. Jack moved through the zero gravity like he was swimming. He had trained for this kind of combat. He knew how to use the lack of gravity to his advantage. He reached the main computer and began typing commands. The Zephyrian command codes were easy to find because they were displayed on screens around the bridge. Within seconds, Jack had access to the ship's most important systems. "He's in our computer," one of the officers shouted. "Stop him before he damages something important." Two Zephyrian guards finally managed to grab onto handholds on the wall. They pushed themselves toward Jack, their claws extended. Jack saw them coming. He finished entering his commands and pushed off from the computer console. As he flew through the air, he drew his pistol and fired twice. The shots hit both guards in the chest. They were not killed because their natural armor was thick, but the impact sent them spinning away through the weightless air. Jack landed on the Admiral's platform. Admiral Zargoth was there, holding onto his command chair with both hands. "Human," the Admiral snarled. "You may have surprised us, but you are still just one small creature. My ship has thousands of soldiers. You cannot defeat us all." "I do not need to defeat them all," Jack said. "I just need to defeat you." Jack's computer virus was working. Around the bridge, warning lights began to flash. The ship's weapons were shutting down one by one. The main engines were reducing power. Communications with the rest of the fleet were failing. "What have you done?" Admiral Zargoth demanded. "I have won," Jack replied. The Admiral lunged at Jack with his claws, but Jack was faster. He grabbed the Admiral's arm and used the alien's own momentum to send him spinning away into the air. "Impossible," Admiral Zargoth gasped as he crashed into the far wall. "You are just a human." "You are supposed to be weak." Jack floated in the center of the bridge, surrounded by helpless Zephyrian officers. His virus had taken control of their ship. Their weapons were offline, their communications were down. Their fleet was losing coordination. "We are not weak," Jack said quietly. "We are just different." Through the bridge windows they could see the Zephyrian fleet beginning to break apart. Without their command ship to coordinate them, the individual captains were making their own decisions. Some were retreating. Others were surrendering. Admiral Zargoth looked at the chaos outside and then back at Jack. "How?" he whispered. "How did one human do this?" Jack holstered his pistol. "Because we never give up, because we adapt to any situation, because we fight not just with our bodies but with our minds." He activated his radio. "Alliance Command, this is Lance Corporal Morrison. Enemy flagship is secure. Admiral Zargoth is my prisoner. The Zephyrian fleet is retreating." General Vextar stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at the tactical display in complete disbelief. The screen showed dozens of Zephyrian ships retreating or surrendering. The enemy fleet that had seemed unstoppable just hours ago was falling apart. "Sir," his communications officer said, her voice full of amazement, "we are receiving surrender signals from 37 Zephyrian vessels. The rest are jumping to faster than light speed and leaving the battle zone." "How is this possible?" General Vextar asked. His massive clawed hands gripped the edge of his command console. "They outnumbered us 2-1. They had better weapons, better armor, better training." Commander Kylith moved her forearms nervously. The human did something to their command ship. Without Admiral Zargoth giving orders, the Zephyrian captains do not know what to do. "One human," General Vextar said slowly. "One small, weak human defeated the entire Zephyrian fleet." On the main screen, they could see the Zephyrian command ship floating dead in space. Its lights were dim, and it was not moving. But it was not destroyed. Somehow, Jack Morrison had taken control of it without blowing it up. "Sir," the communications officer said again, "we are receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship." "Put it on screen," General Vextar ordered. The image changed to show the bridge of the enemy ship. But instead of Admiral Zargoth standing at the command platform, there was Jack Morrison. The human looked tired, and there were scorch marks on his armor, but he was alive. "Alliance Command," Jack said into the camera. "This is Lance Corporal Morrison reporting. The Zephyrian flagship is under Alliance control. Admiral Zargoth and his senior staff are my prisoners." General Vextar could see Zephyrian officers floating in the background. They were not dead, but they were clearly defeated. Some were holding on to walls and furniture to keep from drifting in the zero gravity. "Morrison," General Vextar said, "what is your status?" "I am wounded but functional, sir. The enemy ship's weapons and communications are offline. I have uploaded a virus into their computer systems that should keep them down for several hours." "A virus?" Commander Kylith clicked with surprise. "You mean a computer program?" "Yes. Human military hackers designed it to disrupt alien computer networks. It worked better than expected." General Vextar shook his head. "Human, I do not understand. How did you defeat trained Zephyrian soldiers? They are 3 times your size and much stronger." Jack looked directly into the camera. "I did not try to be stronger than them, sir. I used tactics they did not expect." "What kind of tactics?" "I cut their power at the right moment to create a distraction. I disabled their gravity generator to level the playing field. I used their own size against them by fighting in spaces where they could not follow me." On the screen, Admiral Zargoth floated into view. The massive Zephyrian looked angry and confused. "This is impossible," he said. "Humans are weak creatures. They have no natural weapons, no special abilities." "That is what everyone thinks," Jack replied. "And that is exactly why it worked." General Vextar was beginning to understand. "You used our expectations against us, not just yours, sir. The Zephyrians expected me to fight like other alien species. They thought I would either attack them directly with superior firepower or try to hide until help arrived. They never expected me to sabotage their systems and use their own ship against them." Commander Kylith moved closer to her own screen. "But how did you know how to operate Zephyrian technology?" "I studied their systems during my approach, ma'am. And computers are computers, no matter who builds them. The basic principles are always the same. Admiral Zargoth spoke up again. Human, your species has only been in space for 50 years. How could you possibly understand our technology? Jack looked at the defeated alien commander. Because humans have a talent for learning and adapting. When we encounter something new, we figure out how it works. Then we figure out how to use it better than the people who built it. Impossible, Admiral Zargoth insisted. Is it? Jack asked. Your people have been using the same weapons and tactics for 1,000 years. You never change because you never need to. But humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We had to get creative just to survive. General Vexstar found himself nodding. Everything the human said made sense. The Drachnari had dominated the galaxy for so long that they had stopped innovating. They relied on their natural strength and traditional methods. Morrison, General Vexstar said, you are wounded. Do you need medical assistance? I could use some help, sir. But first, let me transfer Admiral Zargoth and his crew to your custody. I think the war is over. 3 hours later, Jack Morrison sat in the medical bay of General Vexstar's command ship. A Drachnari medic was treating a cut on his arm where a piece of metal had torn through his armor. The wound was not serious, but it needed proper care, General. Vexstar entered the medical bay, followed by Commander Kyleth and several other senior officers. They all looked at Jack with expressions of amazement and respect. Human, General Vexstar said, I owe you an apology. Jack looked up from where the medic was working. Sir, I called you weak. I said your species was too primitive to help us. Fight the Zephyrians, I was wrong. You are not completely wrong, sir, Jack replied. Humans are physically weaker than most alien species. We do not have natural armor or claws or psychic abilities. Then how? General Vexstar asked. How did you succeed where our strongest warriors would have failed? Jack thought about the question for a moment. Sir, every human carries something inside them. It is the memory of a species that almost went extinct many times but never gave up. He paused while the medic finished bandaging his arm. We survived ice ages that should have killed us. We survived diseases that wiped out other animals. We survived wars and disasters and famines. We learned that when you cannot win with strength, you win with intelligence. When you cannot win with intelligence, you win with determination. Commander. Kyleth clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Your species fights differently than ours. Yes, ma'am. Most alien species fight to show dominance or to defend territory. Humans fight to survive and to protect others. That changes everything. General Vexstar sat down on a nearby chair. Even sitting, he was taller than Jack. Morrison, I have been a soldier for most of my life. I have seen many battles and many warriors, but I have never seen anything like what you did today. I just, did my job, sir? No, General Vexstar said firmly. You did much more than that. You saved this entire sector of the galaxy. Millions of people will live because of what you accomplished. Jack stood up and put his armor back on. That is what humans do, sir. We fight for people we have never met because it is the right thing to do. From this day forward, General Vexstar announced to the other officers, humanity will have a permanent seat on the Galactic Defense Council. Never again will we underestimate what humans can accomplish, he turned back to Jack. And you, Morrison, will be promoted and given command of your own ship. The Alliance needs more warriors like you. Jack shook his head. Thank you, sir, but I am not a warrior. I am a Marine. There is a difference. What is the difference? Warriors fight for glory and honor. Marines fight for each other and for people who cannot fight for themselves. Warriors seek victory. Marines seek peace. General Vexstar looked at this small human who had accomplished the impossible. And what do you seek now, Marine? Jack smiled. I seek to go home to Earth, sir. To see my family and tell them that the galaxy is a little bit safer today. You will go home, General Vexstar promised, with the highest honors we can give you. As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, a new phrase began to appear in the languages of dozens of species. Human strong did not mean physical power. It meant the strength of will that allowed one small being to face impossible odds and never give up. The Zephyrian Empire retreated to their homeworlds. their expansion stopped forever. Admiral Zargoth would spend the rest of his life in prison, thinking about the day a single human changed the course of galactic history, and in the Alliance fleets, human soldiers began to serve alongside alien warriors. They were smaller and weaker than their comrades, but they brought something new to the galaxy. They brought the human spirit, the refusal to quit, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. General Vexstar would often tell the story of Lance Corporal Jack Morrison to young officers. He would remind them that strength comes in many forms, and that the most dangerous opponent is often the one you underestimate. The war was over, but humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun.